So first we'll go over our agenda. We want to make sure we know where we're going on this particular ride tonight. So first we have welcome and introductions. Then we'll give a bit of project background. We would like to hear from you. We would like you to share your experiences with us. Then we'll talk about next steps for the PBBS study, and we'll have a Q&A. So I am going to hand this off to Michael Jackson, planner with Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, for his opening remarks. Michael.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time this evening to join us to discuss the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission's Pedestrian and Bicyclist Behavioral Study. My name is Michael Jackson, and I am the department's Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator and a member of the Transportation Planning section within the Prince George's County Planning Department. I am also the project manager for the Pedestrian Bicyclist Behavioral Study Project and am ably assisted by Crystal Hancock, Deputy Project Manager, and Will Capers, Supervisor for the Transportation Planning section. The study will examine whether the presence of certain elements in our transportation infrastructure and their locations throughout the county encourage certain pedestrian and bicyclist behaviors. By analyzing the behavior of pedestrians and bicyclists who travel in the county, we expect to glean new insights into conditions that influence the behavior of active transportation users and motorists alike. These new insights are expected to shape our recommendations on the design of new travel facilities and the retrofit of existing facilities in development application reviews and upcoming area master and sector plan updates. The pedestrian and bicyclist behavioral study will focus on the topics of equity, infrastructure, and safety. We intend for this meeting to be both informational and collaborative in nature, where we can incorporate your thoughts in our plan efforts. I would like to express that this is an ongoing process with all community stakeholders. So if something is missed during this meeting, or as you take in the information and have additional thoughts at a later time, please feel free to reach out to the county's team to provide additional feedback after this meeting and or any time during this process. Our outreach efforts are an essential part of the plan development, and as part of this venture, we have established several ongoing measures to incorporate the community feedback, which will be discussed in more detail later this meeting. On behalf of the Planning Department, I would like to thank all of you in advance for your participation and look forward to working with the many stakeholders during this process as we analyze pedestrian and bicyclist behavior in the county. I will now pass it over to the project team to continue with the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. So Michael did a great job of talking about this particular project. I want to also talk a little bit about what and who are MNCPPC. It's a bi-county agency covering Montgomery and Prince George's County, working with regional development plans, park development and operation in 2 counties, and public recreation in Prince George's County. We really want you to know what drives MNCPPC. And the mission of Prince George's Planning Department is to preserve, protect, and manage the county's resources by providing highest quality planning services, growth management, and facilitating effective intergovernmental and this is crucial for tonight, citizen involvement through education and technical assistance. I'd like you to meet more of the project team. I will ask our project team members to please come off camera when I say your name. So you met Michael Jackson. We also have Will Capers, the planning supervisor, transportation planning section, and Crystal Saunders Hancock, deputy project manager. If you all could just give a wave. We also have several consultant team members. The consultant team is being led by Tool Design. I do ask that you come off camera so people can put a face to a name. Stephanie Brody, and if you're here, also Andy Clark and Jay Serdowski. Also on our consultant team, Aceto Consulting. So we have Odessa Phillip, Christina Bigby, Elsa Arias, Joy Hamilton on the line from Aceto. Okay, so we mentioned earlier about citizen input. Your feedback is critical. To maximize that input tonight, we are using a feedback tool called Slido for participant interaction. We want to practice now and get a sense to make sure everyone has a sense of how to use Slido. And then also we have a bit of an icebreaker. We want to know what city in Prince George's County are you joining us from today? So we are asking that you please either scan this QR code that you see on the screen with your smartphone or mobile device, or you can go to slido.com on your laptop, like you can open another browser on laptop or tablet and type in the code PBBS1, as in the number 1. That's hashtag PBBS1. And survey questions will appear throughout the presentation. So let's practice. I really want to see who's calling in today. All right, so there might be a little bit of a lag between when you see it on screen and when you see on your device. I can see some participants here, and I believe we have, whoa, wow, yes, great. Oh, lots of people from Greenbelt, Bowie, Hydesville. Oh, you all know how to use Slido. I see Landover. One point I want to make about this particular word cloud is that the larger the word, that means that's how many, the more often that word was typed into the word cloud. So if you see Hydesville and Bowie really large, that means we have several people here from Hydesville and Bowie. But I also see Greenbelt, Largo, Cheverly, College Park, fairly large. I see Mitchellville's here tonight, Forestville, Fort Washington, Lanham, Riverdale Heights, Adelphi, Springdale, Riverdale and yes, and Riverdale Park. And someone even came in from Northeast DC as well. So I can see here in the upper right-hand corner of this tool, we can see the number of people who have responded. So 32 so far. I do believe we have a little more than 32 attendees tonight, and we really appreciate you coming in. So I will give people a bit more time to shout out where they're from today. Okay, I think everyone's participated. So we see a lot of Hydesville, Bowie, and Cheverly, but Largo and Greenbelt as well.
We have two hands raised. I'm wondering if you're having issues connecting to Slido. If so, you can place that in the chat as well. We can also get your input in the chat.
Get your input. Thank you, Elsa. And do we have anyone calling in on the phone? In the chat, Elsa. I mean, in the participants.
We don't have any call-in. We have several call-in numbers. So we might want to tell them how to raise their hand. There are several hands raised, but we also have people who've indicated they're from Tacoma Park, Hyattsville, and Westphalia. So Tacoma Park, Hyattsville, Westphalia are also indicated in this chat.
And
Okay.
Fort Washington also.
Fort Washington, and I see Clinton here, not in the chat, but actually on the screen. So for those of you who are calling in on your phones tonight, if you would like to raise your hand so that we see that, you can just dial *5 on your phone, and that raises your hand here in this device. Again, we'll have opportunity for questions a bit later in the presentation, but we do want to make sure you are aware of how you can raise your hands. Okay, I see a few more people typing. I also want to thank our team for hopping in there and mentioning who's in the chat. Okay, so yes, Fort Washington here, unincorporated Prince George's County. And also, when we receive your information from the chat, we can sometimes place it in the document as well. All right, so I am going to move on, but this is a really great example of the feedback tool we are using today. When you go into your breakout rooms, you'll have a different code, but this is exactly how this activity will work. So thank you. And we have 55 responses, so we really appreciate, we know we're gonna have a really robust discussion today. We want to talk a little bit about our meeting purpose. So why are we here? We are here because we really want to share information about Prince George's County's pedestrian and bicyclist behavioral study. We want to hear your thoughts, We want to hear thoughts from the community about bicycling and walking in Prince George's County that will then be reflected in the final PBBS report. So you're going to hear a common theme tonight of, we want to hear from you. What is your feedback? And that's really how you can help. Just please share your perspective, your experiences regarding walking and biking, safety, equity, and infrastructure in the county. So you may be asking, what is the Pedestrian and Bicyclist Behavioral Study? Which we call PBBS for short. It's a countywide study for guiding pedestrian and bicyclist planning and infrastructure development. So we mentioned previously that MNCPPC works with planning, and we really want to make sure the planning includes community feedback. There are three themes that we're looking at here. The team is looking at equity, infrastructure, and safety. So we're asking the questions, how is pedestrian and bicyclist behavior influenced by inequitable transportation infrastructure in the county? We also want to know, how is transportation infrastructure affecting pedestrian and cyclist behavior? How does that affect how you move throughout the county? And what changes can potentially lead to safer behaviors and choices when we walk and bike? So why pursue this study? PBBS will examine whether the presence and location of transportation facilities affect pedestrian and bicyclist behaviors for the county's active transportation planning efforts. We want to determine if pedestrian and bicyclist collisions, injuries, or even fatalities, if they occur disproportionately, and evaluate overall equity impacts on pedestrian and bicyclist behavior. We want to discover what necessary roadways, sidewalks, shared use paths, and other travel facilities design changes make sense. And we really want to identify transportation behaviors that unfortunately lead to crashes so that can be prevented. We want to talk a little bit about what PBBS will do and will not do. So we talked about the purpose of this meeting, why the PBBS study. Now we want to tell you what will come out of this. It will potentially reveal areas in Prince George's County that have a disproportionate burden of the county's pedestrian and bicyclist collisions, and evaluate equity impacts on pedestrian and bicyclist behavior. So we want to see if there's one area of the county that has more of the burden of when it comes to safety. We want to provide a foundational knowledge to inform anyone who walks and bikes in the county, so that we have recommendations and policy and consent policy, and identify behaviors of drivers, pedestrians, and bicyclists, and more that can mitigate a safe experience. What this will not is ensure definitive commitments to specific options. I will not pledge a specific timeline for these interventions, although we will share a timeline for this report at the end of the presentation. It doesn't necessarily guarantee motorist behavior changes or pedestrian or bicyclist behavior changes, but we definitely want to have the discussion with you today. So what does this engagement process look like? It doesn't just start with tonight, and it doesn't end with tonight. It started with open house marketing promotion that happened throughout October, which is why we have so many of you on the call with us tonight. Again, thank you. There is a survey that opened today. You will be some of the first to receive this. We will place a link to the survey later in the presentation. The survey will be open from tonight through November 11th. So through 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on November 11th. And we have the virtual open house, which is this event right here. Now we're getting to the segment where you can share your experiences with us. We're about to head into breakout rooms. And as a reminder, during these breakout rooms, we will have several questions. We'll have 6 questions, some of them open-ended, some of them multiple choice. We may ask you to come off camera, and we will discuss pedestrian and bicyclist experiences related to the 3 PBBS themes: equity, safety, and infrastructure. I will now ask Ben to go ahead and start, Benjamin to go ahead and start this process. Please note, you will receive a pop-up on your screen. You don't have to click to join, it'll just transfer you. And during the breakout room, we will have a chat moderator who will put a new Slido code in your screen, in your chat, so that you can go to the next feedback tool.
We're
Some of
opening up
you
the
will
breakout
be-
rooms.
And some of you will be staying in the room here with me. I'm sorry, Ben, what did you say?
I'm sorry, Christina, I was saying we're opening the breakout rooms now.
Excellent. Okay, here we go. Okay. So people have started to go into their breakout rooms. In this particular room, we have many of the phone callers here because we wanted to have that call. We wanted to have an opportunity for people who called on the line to make sure that they could give their feedback as well. Again, I'm Christina Bigby. I am a consultant here and work on this project. This is considered breakout room 1, even though it's also the main room. So the code you used earlier is the same code that we will use for this particular meeting. I have Ben here on the line, and Ben is going to help monitor the chat and the hands that are raised. Ben, are there any questions in the chat so far as we go through this process?
No questions at the moment, but I am waiting for them to come up and I'll let you know as they do.
Excellent. Thank you, Ben. And again, for those of you who are dialed in, if you want to speak, you may dial *5, and that lets us know that you were on the line with us tonight. This particular breakout room will be 30 minutes. I am going to give about 30 seconds. I see a phone number here with the hand raised, a couple hand raised. So we are going to start in just a moment. If you have your hand raised and you want to answer a particular Slido question, we can add that into the chat. So we see you, just give us one moment. I see a number ending in 63, a number ending in 46, and then an external DCPS number. So Ben, if you could add the Slido in the chat. You can go to slido.com and enter in, do not enter in PBS2. I see someone wrote that in there, but that's not for our room. I think they just were in the wrong chat. We are PBBS1. So if you use that first interactive icebreaker where you told us where you're from, you're already in the right room. So we are going to start chatting. Again, if you are just joining us, because this is a bit of the overflow room for anyone just joining, we want to make sure you know how much your experiences matter to us. I've said it a couple times previously. I'll continue to say it. And whether they're challenging or positive, we want to hear both. So you can scan this QR code or you can go to PBBS1. Okay, so the first question are, what are your examples of great walkable cities and places? So you should be seeing this on your phone or on your tablet. What are your examples of great walkable cities and places? As people are typing, we do know that some people have their hand raised on the phone by hitting *5, and we will call on you as these answers come in. So I hear Amsterdam, which I've heard a lot about great walkable cities. I hear Boston, I hear Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., that's interesting. Downtown Washington, D.C.
Looks like Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Maine, and Portland, Oregon. Paris, I love Paris. Copenhagen, Washington, D.C. Any place that I don't feel like I'll be run over when walking. Yeah, that's important. New York, Asheville for small towns, Watkins Regional Park. So Seattle, Washington. So we're getting some amazing cities and places. Washington, D.C., Annapolis, Maryland, Ann Arbor. The entirety of the Route 1 corridor is walkable. Many activities and amenities outside of this area, Minneapolis and St. Paul, and I've heard Chicago. So Okay, someone mentioned a book, Building the Cycling City, the Dutch Blueprint for Urban Vitality. So to show an example of a great walkable city, that might be a book resource for our planners and for everyone on the call. So Ben, for anyone who has their hand raised, who wants to contribute to an example of a great walkable city or place, could you please unmute them so we can hear from them?
Sure, let's let's start with Terry Kinney.
Hi, Terry, what would you like to add to the great walkable cities and places?
Hi, this is Talib Salam. You already said Boston, so. I'm
Said
back on
Boston.
you.
Okay, so Boston was twice. I see Rehoboth Beach, I see Netherlands, I see Old Greenbelt, parts of Arlington. Someone agree with New York City? Anyone else been online? I'm
I
sorry.
I thought I had unmuted a Terry Kinney who has a hand raised, but I'm not sure if that person is able to speak into the mic.
Okay, well, we can go to the next person, perhaps come back to hit Terry. And I do see Old Greenbelt in here.
Yeah, other than Terry, I'm not seeing any other hands raised at the moment.
Okay, all
I
right,
have a
so
question.
TC, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
we
yes,
can, could you state your name?
Yes. My name is Jocelyn. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. Thank you, Jackson, for coming tonight.
Yes. How do I get to the Slido? What is the address, the link to see the questions on the Slido? Or
It's, are you calling in on the phone?
yes, but can
Yes,
can I just go to the Slido?
You certainly can. Slido.com, and it
Mhm.
will ask you for a participant code, and you enter
Right.
PBBS1, as in the number one,
Okay.
PBBS1.
PBBS1. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for coming off and letting us know that. Also, we do see your question. I see a question from Terry A. Kinney. What are you doing to make cycling safer in the county? So we're going to have some questions about safety a bit later. Please note that these meetings are being recorded, and we are tracking this and we'll analyze this. So all questions are being recorded as well, even if they're placed in the chat. I see Steve said you're struggling with the app and chat. Any idea how to get rid of a gray bar? I'm not certain, Steve, but you may want to, the universal reboot may help there. And also you can also come off of, if you raise your hand, you can come off of mute and we can get your contribution there as well. Okay, we're still on question 1 and we have 30 minutes and I know we have more discussion coming. So we are going to, I am going to go back to this list here and read a few more cities that I hear. San Francisco, Guanajuato, Mexico, Rome, Paris, NYC, especially because you can walk to bike, share, bus, or subway if it's too far to walk. So we've heard several examples. I would like, raise hand, we're gonna go with the first person who raises, someone who wrote in the chat. I would like for that person to be called on so that you can tell us why you feel that particular city is walkable. But please raise your hand because we do have 20 people here. And someone said Charleston, Philly, Duck, North Carolina, Old Williamsburg. Actually, we have 20 people. I think you could come off of mute if you want to share why you thought a particular city is walkable. And we have time for at least one share before we move on to that next question.
Let's go with Lori Williams.
Lori Williams. Hi, Lori. What
Hi,
city did you
everyone.
choose?
I said downtown Washington, D.C. And
Okay.
the reason I say that because downtown have sidewalks on both sides of the streets. They have lights, street lights. So it's well lit. They have traffic lights and walk signs.
So that's what you want to see in a nice walkable city. Thank you. Anyone, I really appreciate that comment. I want to get one more, maybe someone who picked a place that's out of the country. I think those are interesting. why was that place considered so walkable to you?
Let's go with John Paul Evans. John, can you unmute yourself?
And if not, then we can unmute you. To unmute on the phone is *6.
Okay, he's saying only select participants can
Okay.
unmute.
Okay, so you can place in the chat if you chose, okay, I see TC said automated lights that automatically let people walk even if they aren't there in time to press the button. So that's something. So we're hearing lighting a couple of times. And that technology. Kim Taylor said she selected places that if you walk too far away, you have plenty of public transportation so you can go back. Okay, so thank you very much. I think the last comment here in the Slido is Venice, Italy, because it has no cars. So that is less car-centric place. What I'm hearing is several places, some nearby, DC, North Carolina, but also also places around the world like Amsterdam, Venice, and that what we like are sidewalks, lighting, and automation. That technology that helps us automate. Okay, we're going to move to the next question.
If I
Anyone
can add
who's
to that, I would
Okay.
say just zones that smoothly transition. So if there's sidewalks, you know, say between a populated downtown and another area where there are restaurants, that those just continue, that there aren't kind of dead zones or boundaries between getting from, you know, maybe public transportation, say a metro or and a restaurant or downtown area, that that's sort of
So connectivity.
Connectivity, yeah, continuous.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate you coming off and off mute and telling us. All right, so the next question, and for anyone who's having a trouble with Slido, you can type in the comment and it will be added in. And Ben's there, he will read off. Sometimes I can see the chats and sometimes I'm just really into this document. These are some pictures. The next question is, what would make walking and bicycling preferable modes of travel for you? So you'll see a couple here, a couple of the answers. We have some examples here. So we're saying bike share or scooter share. We're talking about extended curbs. We're talking about painted lanes, etc. So this is just to give you a view of what some of these look like. Okay, someone's already started. It should be showing up on your device now. What would make walking and bicycling preferable modes of travel for you? And what you're seeing here is kind of like, it's like a race almost. It's going to show what people are, whatever is selected more frequently is going to come to the top. This is one where you can pick more than one option. We really want to know what would make walking and bicycling preferable modes of travel for you. So I'm seeing a lot of protected bicyclist lanes. We hear that a lot. Protected lanes, more crosswalks, trails, or mixed use paths. So that shared use path is often something that we hear, and those seem to be the top. But hearing a lot sidewalks. People would be more likely to walk if they had sidewalks and maintain sidewalks, and storage facilities as well. I'm going to scroll down a bit so I can see all the answers. We also have storage facilities at 50%, painted lanes, curb extensions, scaled lighting and signage, shared lane markings, scooter share and bike share is kind of low here. And then we have other. So we have 22 responses. For someone who said other, I would like you to come off. If you cannot come off mute, that's fine. You can place in the chat, but we would like to hear from you. What is your other out of all of these?
Hi, good evening. My name's Marina.
Hi, Marina.
I placed other, and I put it in the chat already, but canopy cover, or something that provides shade, I would definitely choose a route that, especially in the summertime where there's some shade, when choosing to either walk or bike.
Okay. So that would make you more likely to walk or bike if you knew you were going to a place where you, when you got there was some shade there.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wrote
Looks
other
like-
that we could hear from?
Looks like we
Yes,
have two
this is
hand
Laurie.
raised.
And I put down other, I was thinking about wayfinders or, signage along your route to tell you which way to go or
Mhm.
how far you are from your destination if it's a major site that you're trying to get to.
Okay. So wayfinding signage,
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense. And on the survey that you will get a link to, I think there's some questions about signage there as well. Anyone else who picked other?
Hi, this is Ben. I think
Hi, Ben.
increased traffic enforcement, particularly related to speed. So whether that's speed cameras, additional speed bumps, speeding is definitely a threat to bicyclists and certainly a threat to pedestrians as well.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Ken McCoy.
Hi, Ken.
I
You
have a
chose
couple
other?
things.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
We have many others.
There's lack of sidewalk connectivity. We have gaps in the sidewalk network. Right turn on red at crosswalks is often a challenge. Drivers don't seem to be looking for pedestrians. Oftentimes a leading walk light helps in those situations. And often you get to an intersection, if you don't hit the beg button on time, you have to wait a whole traffic cycle. So I think that's a deterrent, especially when you're close to areas you might consider to be destinations for pedestrians. I see near business districts where you have to wait long time to cross. And similarly, often there's intersections that have 3 crosswalks, not on all 4 sides. So actually to cross the street, you got to cross 3 light cycles. And that's a pretty big deterrent. And I think it's a safety issue. You're exposed to more traffic lanes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we may have time for one more other before we have to move to the next question, because we do have 4 more questions.
I was going to add that the quality of the roads for cyclists like myself who actually use the roadways and share the lanes, the potholes or construction or just debris on the road itself, or even construction, which I think I just mentioned, can be difficult to navigate if you're sharing the lane.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's a good point. Maintenance, we hear that a lot, as far as not just with the roads, also with the sidewalks. Okay, we're going to move to the next question. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. And I will say before we move, the top 3 here are protected bike lanes, trails or mixed use paths, which even some people who chose other mentioned some paths and more crosswalks. Crosswalks and sidewalks tied. Okay, this is open-ended. We want to know, how have you adapted to feel safe while walking or bicycling? So several people mentioned some barriers to safety. How do you overcome those barriers? Do you overcome? What do you do? So ride on sidewalks, even though maybe that may not be preferable to people who are on the sidewalks, you're doing that for a safety purpose. Lights, what, can you write in here, what do you mean by lights? Like you carry lights on you walk with lights? I see a couple of ride on sidewalks, carry pepper spray. You don't ride, someone doesn't ride. I wonder if you don't ride, is there a particular reason? Maybe you can throw that in the chat for us. A lot of people are riding on sidewalks, or ride in the middle lane. When you can't, you bike on sidewalks. Don't ride your bike anymore, maybe because it's not safe. I might ask you to come off mute on that. Take a longer route to avoid Route 1, also drive more. Front and back cameras on the bike, well, that's interesting. If the cars have them, why not the bikes? Riding in the center right of lane, wearing a helmet, careful mapping of routes using Google Satellite and Street View, sometimes you might take longer to get to your destination to avoid these hazards. You have a mirror to see behind you on the bike, choosing longer route that is safer. It's a trade-off, right? A lot of people say they're riding on sidewalks, or you have lights on the bike, taking the quieter back streets. I'm hearing route is impacted here. Prefer bike trails. As a bicyclist, I assume drivers and pedestrians never see me. So you just go in with that assumption. Ride trails, wearing safety vests, so like a bright yellow or orange vest to increase visibility. Sometimes you just say, I can't walk or bike, I'm gonna take transit. It's just gonna be safer for me. That's what I think you're saying. Lights, lights while riding, extra caution when riding, use of hand signals for turning, safety equipment such as helmet, and riding with others, so riding in a group. And someone says they preview the area to determine if it's walk and bicycle safe. Someone else says they do not ride at night, they wear bright colors, or they ride in groups. Ben, I'm gonna ask you, how are we doing on our time so far?
Looks like we have, I believe we started this at 6:30, so I think we have about 15 to 17 minutes.
Okay, all right. So, someone said there were a lot of reflective material. They took a bike safety class, so they wear reflective material, high visual gear, lights on themselves, front and back of bike, and riding so you ride almost as if you're in a vehicle. Wear a lot of reflective material. So I hear that a lot. Walking with keys in fingers, for safety, for walking. Okay, and riding in groups. Okay, so a couple more people are typing. As they're typing, Ben, is there anyone who's on the phone who maybe has not used Slido.com? If you're on the phone, you've called in and you were not able to get into Slido.com to participate, please do *5, and that shows a hand raise, and we can have you come off mute and mention answer this question. So I see someone's advocating for lighting, keeping bike in good repair. So well maintenance on the bike. We talked about roads, sidewalks, but bike maintenance bicycle maintenance is helpful too. Someone said run a red, specific intersection only when there is no cross traffic. Oh, you run the red to beat the cars behind you over the bridge because the bike lane disappears. So there's no connectivity there. That's interesting. So sometimes we're finding ourselves maybe breaking a regulation or breaking a rule to secure our safety. Is that what I'm hearing? If so, you can just put a thumbs up in on your picture or use that. Because I am hearing a couple times that we're doing different rules.
Also, don't hesitate to put a question in the chat if you're unable to answer in the Slido poll.
Okay. Someone just wrote, is Christina muted? My name is also Christina. I'm assuming you can hear me. Is there another Christina on here?
I'm not seeing one.
Okay. Okay. You all can hear me okay. All right. So John Paul or Erica, it seems like everyone can hear me. So if you cannot, maybe log out and log back in. Okay, I'm going back here. Go through stop sign so you don't get rear-ended. Idaho stop. I do not know what that is. Maybe that person could come off mute. Unfortunately, someone said they take Uber or Lyft to drive around because it's just safer, in their opinion, instead of walking or biking. Or you use more populated walking trails. You carry mace, walk or bike on the sidewalk on the southern part of Route 1 near Skate Park to go north.
I can describe an Idaho stop.
Yes, please do.
So an Idaho stop is a law that was passed in Idaho that allows bicyclists to yield at stop signs instead of coming to a full stop, assuming that there's no traffic conflict. Similar thing to red lights. Obviously, if there's traffic, you stop, but otherwise it's legal to yield. And when that was passed, accident rates with bicyclists went down. It's been passed in a few other states, but there's very few states that have that.
Okay. Thank you very much for explaining that for everyone who may have been on the call. I also want to address the technology issue. Steve S. says my volume is very low. I have such a loud voice. I've never been accused of being low before, but I will try to speak up so you can hear me better. If anyone else is having that problem, please let me know if you're having a problem hearing me. And I see David said DC has passed that, the special, the Idaho stop where you can yield, but that hasn't been implemented yet. And someone said that's risky. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next question. Is there anyone else who wrote something here? Okay, thank you, Marina. You can hear me loud and clear. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. Anyone else who wrote how they have adapted to feel safe while walking or bicycling? One more person can come off mute before we move to the next question.
This is
And
Kim
thank you for
Fisher.
that comment.
Oh.
Yes, yes.
Hi, Kim.
Oh, hi. I was just gonna say in my response, I wrote that I ride in the middle of the lane or stop at a stop sign or stop light in the middle of the lane, because that way I'm sure everybody sees me. I don't think that's against the rules, but a lot of times bikers really hesitate to take that full lane.
Thank you. I'm going to take additional notes here, so I'm getting out my notepad, my second notepad, because such good feedback. I also see, actually, you're still typing, and I appreciate this. I love these discussions. Make eye contact with drivers at intersections, so you make sure they see you, so that you're not hit. A pull noodle on your bike to keep cars at a 3 feet distance. Well, that is unique. And I see using particular trails as well. Okay, I'm going to move us to our next question. Thank you for the robust discussion. So this is the multiple choice. Traditionally, under-resourced and low-income populations have been left out of transportation planning conversations. What are some barriers that you see to equitable pedestrian and bicyclist access in your community? And then we have several options here. Again, this is going to do the horse race where it shows us what people are saying, and you can choose more than one.
Looks like
Okay.
we have a hand raised. It's someone with a 919 number. Feel free to speak.
Hi, this is Talib Assalam. I'm president of the Goodfellas Cycling Club in Maryland.
Hi, Thomas.
Hi. I wanted to, just call attention to. I know we put pedestrians and cyclists together, and I think we also should have a facet where we're thinking about the safety of each other separately, because sometimes if you have cyclists on the same road as pedestrians, collisions can happen that could really hurt pedestrians, right? And vice versa. Sometimes you have cyclists who are trying to avoid a pedestrian and they get into accidents too. So I don't know if it necessarily fits right now with the discussion, but I wanted to just throw that in there as a consideration for later, and I'll get on mute.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for adding that. So that's a very interesting perspective, and that's why we're having these, so that we can hear everyone's perspective. It's not just pedestrian and bicyclists. Sometimes it's pedestrian and bicyclists, and how can they interact? It's not just with the motorist. Thank you. All right,
I would echo that as well. If you could look at the DC Wharf as an example, where the cycling and lane looks like a walkway, and often pedestrians are crossing over it, and cause a lot of chaos or accidents.
All right, thank you, and appreciate
We do
that.
have
And I'm
have
going to
another
move to the next
question.
question, because I think we have about 3 more minutes. And I want to get this question in.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, give us one moment. What factors about your race, gender, socioeconomic, sexual orientation, age, ability, etc., any of those identities may influence your relationship with walking and bicycling? For the person who just wanted to speak, please drop a note in the chat. But we do want to know whether it's gender, race, socioeconomic, sexual orientation, age, ability, What may influence your relationship with walking or biking?
I don't understand that question.
Yes, okay. I'll give an example. I'll give an example. Thank you. So maybe some people say, I don't want to walk at night because someone mentioned earlier that we need more enforcement. There are some people who may feel that their race or their gender may make enforcement harder for them. So maybe that's a reason why they don't walk or bike. For instance, if you are transgender, you may not feel safe walking in certain areas. Or maybe your socioeconomic status keeps someone from walking or biking because maybe they can get a bike, maybe they can't afford to maintain the bike. Like, what is preventing that that access? Maybe age, for instance, someone mentioned signage before. If you're older, maybe you're wearing, maybe your sight isn't as good, maybe you need larger print on signs. So what are the different things? That's an example. I hope that helped.
May I ask another question?
Yes, I want to read some of these, but could you hold that one moment
Yes.
while I read some of these? So some people said they're not impacted. I see gender for safety and not wanting unwanted attention. I see someone said gender, it makes them more afraid to bike in the evening or in the areas you're not familiar with. I don't know what gender that person is, but I think that's really interesting. I know sometimes as a woman, I'm very careful about where I bike at night. I don't bike, excuse me, where I walk at night is what I meant to say. And also even coming home. Uh, Somebody said it's not applicable. Someone said gender, ability. So maybe if someone's uses a wheelchair, it may be harder for them to, a wheelchair is still considered active transportation, just like walking. I see physical ability might be an issue, but not sure about other factors. Someone mentioned socioeconomic lack of funds to even purchase a bike, gender, safe walk. Someone said age, they're starting to notice that you're getting a bit imbalanced and sidewalks are not always well maintained. So those can impact. Age can limit capacity to walk or bike longer distances as you get older. And someone said, I'm a tall, young white guy. People tend to get out of my way and nobody bothers me when I walk alone. However, this person can't imagine how hard it must be to walk alone in the dark on paths in College Park or for some other demographics. And thank you for being empathetic. Someone said race can be a factor at night, gender, lack of infrastructure, and fear of inconsiderate motorists, location, no convenient place to ride a bike without driving somewhere first. Someone says a female, you feel more vulnerable and targeted. Oh no, after a friend was unfortunately attacked during the day with a knife, you worry about taking shortcuts or low traffic patterns. I also see my family's race because Black folks might get ticket for biking on sidewalk, whereas maybe others might not get a ticket. So that's the question about enforcement, and is that enforcement equitable? Someone said the question's a bit too broad, and someone said not for me, but a lot for disabled people. And I see continuous and direct safe connections that don't add long distances. I think what you're saying is, I'm not certain what that individual is saying. Maybe you could expound upon that in the chat of how that relates to that particular question. This is a lot. Thank you. This is a lot of really good feedback. Inconvenient connections is a factor of with your walking and biking. I'm checking on our time. I think they may extend it a bit because I know someone had a question. Okay. That one young lady, you had a question, you had one question, then you had a second question. I do want to get back to that. Our time has been extended a little bit, and because we're having such a great discussion.
No, my question was this, that whether, like, if I'm biking in my neighborhood, I'm very comfortable. But then outside of my neighborhood, if you don't know the area, you are not likely to be as comfortable. So you need to put that question in content for the answer that you want to get for, because people have different answers for different content.
Right. So I can understand that. So for you, it's more geographic. It's more about, it's not about these particular identity factors, but for you, the safety is more like I'm comfortable where I live, but maybe other places I'm not as comfortable. It's what I hear you saying. So thank you. I also see some other, someone said bike share is expensive. That can discourage people from participating or biking. So if you can't afford a bike, the idea is that, well, bike share you can get from place to place. It's easy, but maybe you can't afford that as well. I also see, I would have some fear if my African-American boys rode their bikes at night. Some may assume that they're doing something wrong. I see from Old Greenbelt, there's a convoluted route to the Metro or the Anacostia Tributary Trail System. Someone said not sure of the question. I hope that the discussion we had a little earlier with the young woman who came off mute helped with that, but if not, you can put questions in the chat. Someone else said harassment because of color. Good point about the fact that context place might make it feel safer or less safe to walk or bike. Yes, that was a very good point by that attendee. Thank you. Also, I think pedestrian issues and cyclist issues should be separated. These are two different audiences, potentially different needs. Okay, this has really been a good discussion, and can be a hard question, right? It's hard to talk about these things, but really we want to have a good measurement and have open, honest discussion, and we appreciate that. I'm going to move to the next question, but if time permits, we can come back to some of these. Someone mentioned West Heights was a hard neighborhood to ride in. Mentioned bike share drop-off points. And ability is a factor. Several sidewalks aren't ADA compliant, so Americans with Disability Act compliant in many areas. Thank you. I think you all really gave us a lot here and really appreciate that. Our next question is, how aware are you of Prince George's County's pedestrian and bicyclist laws and policies? This is a multiple choice question. So we're trying to get a sense at, are people aware of the county laws or policies? I know where the information is, but I haven't looked. I know one or two policies. I know several. I know who to contact. I don't know who to contact. I follow several existing laws or policies. I know where to find them. And we do have a link to pedestrian, motorist, and bicyclist laws and policies. I believe, Ben, you have that link. Could you share that in the chat? It was on the Runner Show. If not, I can try to share it.
Yeah, I'll find that. I wasn't provided with that link. I'm sorry.
No problem. Give me a moment and I can provide.
Also, we're getting a lot of responses here. For those of you who have their hand up, if we haven't been able to call on you, place the question in the chat if you can.
Yes. And I'm putting the Maryland laws for pedestrians, motorists, and bicycles in the chat. Maryland laws for pedestrians, motorists around bicycles, and bicyclists in the chat. I see there are some hands raised, and we're going back to some people are coming to our meeting. So the great thing about our breakout room group is that we're in the main room. So we didn't get cut off, but I think that we probably had some really robust discussion out there.
We did.
Again, it sounds like we did. I'm so excited. Okay, so I'm going to, now that we have our main room people coming in, the main room. So actually, fantastic. Thank you for your input. We had some great discussion. We want to hear what you said in your teams. So what I am going to do is I'm going to call on different facilitators, and we have 30 to 60 seconds, no more than 60 seconds, to talk about the main themes you heard. I will say, anyone who had a question that wasn't answered, please put it in the chat. Again, I'm going to remind you, you can use the thumbs up to upvote, and at the end, that'll be a question that we can come back to. Additionally, if you have your hand raised and weren't able to speak in the breakout room, please place your question in the chat. If you're calling on the phone, we will have a time for questions at the end. So, all right, we'll start with breakout room 1, which is my breakout room, and we'll do the themes. I will be testing. I'm not someone who, I'm very detail oriented. So this will be a test for me to do this in 60 seconds or less. But the themes that we heard regarding walkable and bikeable places, some local like Washington, D.C., but we also heard Amsterdam, Rome, New York City. We heard Duck, North Carolina. And thematically, what tied those in were sidewalks, well-maintained, well lighting, more pedestrian focused versus car motorist focused, and technology that help with access. To talk a more high level regarding what we heard in the meetings, we heard lots of information about connectivity. Sometimes trails don't connect, sometimes sidewalks do not connect. We heard around safety, that some people feel more safe in their community, but not and other elsewhere. They just know their neighborhood more. But what would make them feel more safe is maybe protected bike lanes. I heard a lot about protected bike lanes. We also heard when we talked about social and economic status, identity, ability, et cetera. There were some questions about how that related, but there were some really good questions about, you know, age, ability. Someone even said, I don't feel like I'm impacted by that, but I do worry some for people of other demographics. And affordability came out a lot in that one as well. So those are some things. Oh, and one thing I do want to point out is someone mentioned that when we talk about pedestrians and bicyclists, we also often talk about those things together, pedestrians and bicyclists. But sometimes when you think about them separate, because they can kind of be at odds sometimes too. And I will toss it to breakout room 2 for the facilitator breakout room 2, who is Odessa Phillip. Please tell us what you heard.
Oh, we were room 2. Okay, excellent. So we heard many of the same locations that you listed. We also heard London. We heard Paris specifically. We heard Washington, D.C. And then a lot of local, which we thought were interesting, like Alexandria, Virginia, Gaithersburg, Maryland, were also listed in our grouping. In general, there was a feeling that more effort needs to be made on the design side that will help generate people wanting to ride and bike, to bike and walk and feel safe. So if the designs were focusing on bikes and pedestrians using all of those facilities, then maybe more people would be inclined to do so. There was a concern that the lack of connectivity is one of the biggest barriers or deterrents. And connectivity meaning either the sidewalks physically connect where they should, but also connectivity in that they lead to somewhere. So even though you may have a bike lane or you may have a cycling sidewalk, it doesn't necessarily lead to a destination. So having a destination was important. So not also finding them in a position where they're always under construction. Then finding places that are using design to slow traffic speeds was also pretty consistent, that the design could really lend itself well to that increased use of bike and pedestrian facilities. Then we talked a little bit about having to get rid of what they call beg buttons or challenges with maintenance on the buttons that you press to say, I want to cross the road. So we had a good, robust conversation around that and being able, those actually being functional so that people can use them. And then having the ability to educate people about biking and walking, like motorists about it, but also educating cyclists and walkers and pedestrians about how to work within the system. So both ways on that educating piece, and also with the new people coming into cycling and riding them, make sure that they're maintaining. Having lighting being another very important point, lighting being something that is a key piece of issue. And then when it came to safety and feelings of what makes equitable transportation, we had comments from several women in our group that they feel unsafe in empty spaces or places that don't have people. So I think I carried most of that.
Thank you, Odessa. We heard some of the same about gender and walking safe at night. Okay, breakout room 3, 60 seconds or less. What were the high level themes in your room?
Okay, high level themes. Well, first, just the walkable cities. You know, we did hear Alexandria, we heard DC, we did hear Paris as well. Will Capers is from New York. Put a plug in there for New York, of course. And we also heard San Francisco as a very walkable city. Let's see. So the theme that we heard a lot, I would say, is safety. So it came up repeatedly in various questions related to safety and otherwise. So, walkways, insufficient lighting were real barriers to equitable access. So, again, safety were the main barriers, safety related things. When we talked about equity and we talked about, the gender question and all of that, we found that, you know, women, had a lot of gender safety. One person suggested, hey, I don't like to walk in certain areas. I prefer to be on my bike because of cat calls. I mean, it's just not easy. As a pedestrian, sometimes it's easier as a biker to flee in a situation. One of the interesting things I think that we heard, too, is when we talked about access to the information and do you know about policies and laws? We heard in our room that one person has been trying in vain to get some information about where to ride on sidewalks. So that became a big question, because in Prince George's County, there's a list of certain sidewalks, and it isn't easy to access. So that was a point of conversation. One other really key thing is that providing more education to drivers to share the road seemed to be really a key factor. Everybody agreed, it's the drivers who need the education more so. And then one person said, really, if we can punish bad actors who are riding, who are drivers in cars, and really call that out, that, that's a real deterrent. And it's a deterrent to bad acting, but it's also an incentive to know what the right thing is to do, to share the road.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. That was, it seems like y'all had a robust discussion, and definitely someone did write some information about riding on sidewalks that is illegal in the county. But we did hear that several people were riding on sidewalks to preserve their safety. So that's interesting. You may have heard that in your room too. Elsa Arias, breakout room 4. Tell us what your high level themes were.
Right. So the highest level, well, the theme that came out most on walkable cities was European cities, as well here on the East Coast, New York, DC, Arlington, Virginia, and Cambridge. Scarborough, North Carolina. You should be happy about, hearing North Carolina. And then what would make them walk or bike, safer, it's having protected bike lanes. That was the most, in sidewalks as well as trail mixed paths as well. And then as far as equity, fear of collision or traffic accidents was the most resonant. And let's see how they have adapted. It was mostly, like wearing safety gear. So safety was the main theme on how they have adapted while walking or bicycling. And then the factors about equality versus equity was mostly socioeconomic and gender. And then the laws and policies. Most people knew, 1 to 2 county law policies, as well as they follow it, and they know it and they follow it.
Excellent. Thank you, Elsa. And I did place in the chat where you can find laws for bicyclists, motorists around bicycles, and pedestrians. So that is in the chat, and that can be posted again by our chat moderator. And we heard the same thing about in our room about safety and wearing lighting. Someone even said they use a pool noodle to keep a distance. Someone has cameras on the front and back. So we heard similar. Okay, our last breakout room, Stephanie Brody, breakout room 5. What were the high level themes that you heard?
We did not have a breakout room 5. So I was
Oh,
actually
sorry.
in with Joy.
I'm sorry. That's right. We only had 4. Sorry. So you were in Joy's room, so that saves us a bit of time. Thank you. So we were planning if even more people came, although we have a great number of people here we would have had 5 breakout rooms. So 4 worked. Okay, so thank you very much. Moving right along in our presentation tonight. I am going to actually, Stephanie, it is time for you to speak because Stephanie's going to talk a little bit about our timeline for this project. Stephanie?
Yes, thank you. Yes, so we started this project back in May, and we had a kickoff meeting with the project team at the commission, and we talked about our goals and our intentions for this project. One of the first tasks started in August, and that was to look at some of those laws and policies around bicycling and walking, and to put those into a report. So we will have a report coming out, a section of our report, our final report coming out, that will discuss some of those plans and policies and laws around biking and walking and how they can influence behavior. And from that, we then are now having our community outreach and engagement. So we're having this meeting, and then we also have the survey that is open today. So please give us your feedback through that survey, and feel free to share that as well. Link will be in the chat and at the end of the presentation. And then after this meeting, we're starting our deep dives into the 3 themes of equity, infrastructure, and safety. And these are 3 analyses, 3 series of analyses that we'll be doing, focusing on those themes. Finally, we'll be completing the report in June and then publishing it in July of next year.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephanie. And you mentioned engagement opportunities, and I mentioned earlier that I would consistently be talking about getting feedback from everyone, from community members. And this is that opportunity. That survey again is open from October 19th through 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, November 11th. You may scan this QR code. So we've used a lot of QR codes today. You can scan the QR code, and you are some of the first who can take this survey. The survey is in English, and you have an option to take it in Spanish. It's the same link. You can also go to this bit.ly and take the survey there. You may share it. It will also be posted on the project website, on their social media eventually as well. So please, our chat moderator will place this survey in the chat now. But again, you certainly may scan the QR code. The survey takes about 12 minutes. And you may share with friends, and you can use this survey link here that we place in the chat. So here are some additional project contact information. The project website. We have email for Michael Jackson, the project manager, email for Crystal Saunders Hancock, the deputy project manager, and social media. I will, for those who are on the phone, I will read out the email addresses. It is michael.jackson@ppd.mncppc.org, and Crystal's email, crystal.hancock@ppd.mncppc.org. For the survey, I will go back for those who are on the phone because you may not have heard the survey. The survey is, we do a shortened link. So you can go to bit.ly, bit.ly/PBBS_SURVEY, PBBS_SURVEY, it's capital, and take the survey. Or you can wait till it's posted on the website and visit there and visit social media. If you do want to visit the project team on social media, the planning department, you can go to @PGPlanningMD and find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So all of this information about the website, the survey, the emails will be placed in the chat by our chat moderator. And now we will have time for some questions in the chat. So during this presentation, the main room presentation, your microphones were mostly muted. In the breakout rooms, you had time to come off a little bit and speak, but we also really want to answer a few questions. Again, I remind you, any questions that are not answered here, we will have a Q&A on the project website. So we are asking that you type any questions or comments you have in the chat box, and you can upvote. So the right-hand corner, kind of hover your mouse or hover over that, and you can choose a thumbs up, and we will answer questions.
So Christina, I did note that several people noted they were not able to upvote.
Okay.
In the chat. So I saw a couple people say that they don't have that option. Maybe they're on their particular device.
All right, thank you for pointing that out. What we'll do then is if you aren't able to upvote, we'll just go to the questions as they come, and we will answer them in that way. Also, for those of you who are calling in, you may hit *5 and that raises your hand and we can call on you in that way. So we can do that.
So there are a number of comments in the chat, Christina.
Okay.
But questions, kind of outright questions there that were asked. I lost the first one that I had. Are you interacting with the Purple Line Corridor Coalition, which is conducting accessibility mapping to show how far safely you could walk between future Purple Line stations and neighborhoods? Is one question.
Great question. I will, Crystal or someone from the county or Michael, would you like to answer that question regarding the Purple Line Corridor interaction?
I don't have interaction with them, but if someone would forward their contact information, I'd be happy to connect with them.
We can also share through with the work that we do with DPW and T staff. If they have that if they have that connection, we can also share with our networks through DPW and T staff.
Thank you.
Okay.
Another
All
question.
right.
Does the county have a major fatal crash task force to analyze the factors, which may include engineering, design, infrastructure, and vehicle factors, in addition to behavior, related to fatal crashes in the county on a regular basis? And this is a reference to the pedestrian that was killed on Greenbelt and Kenilworth in a hit and run last night, I believe. So I saw it on the news myself this morning. So is there a major fatal crash task force that analyzes the crash factors?
There is a the police department and coordinates with the Maryland Traffic Safety Task Force. I believe that's the acronym, and others. We get a lieutenant from the Prince George's County Police Department that speaks at the Department of Public Works and Transportation's I don't have the meeting name right off the top of my head, but there's I think there's a quarterly report and we get some information. However, the pedestrian bicyclist behavioral study will endeavor to get a hold of pedestrian and bicycle crash reports so we can dig deep and try to determine what were actions of parties involved in crashes just prior to the crash and develop look at crash patterns to see what types of behaviors are most likely to contribute to a crash, and look at how we can develop countermeasures, counter strategies to see if we can change some of those behaviors, make recommendations on how to change some of those behaviors with a particular focus on the behaviors most likely to lead to crashes and injuries.
Thank you.
Christina, I see there are 4 people who have their hands raised, but I wanted to ask Crystal and Michael, there are a lot of questions that are in the chat and probably far more than we'd ever be able to get through quickly. But some of them are more detailed questions. And is there a mechanism for people to get responses to the questions that they're asking in the chat?
Yes, and I just answered by letting them know that they can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, as well as Twitter, and the project website as well.
Yeah, so as a part of this analysis, what we'll do is take a look at the questions in the chat, because this has been a really active chat. I'm trying to keep up and I can't. So in regards to that, we'll have to take a look at the chat, try to determine which questions we can answer, and then go ahead and provide an response on our project website. If people have emails, if they'd like to email either Michael or both Michael and I, we can go ahead and work towards getting you the information to respond to your comments.
This has been a wonderful response. We are pleasantly surprised, and we are impressed with the interest of the community. And we do endeavor to respond to all the comments that are there. It may not be immediate, but your comments will be invaluable as we develop the pedestrian and bicyclist behavioral study. So we very much appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. And I will mention a couple of questions that are easy as far as where can they find this presentation? Someone said, will they get this in an email? But I think it'll be posted on the website. Crystal, can you answer
We
that?
can post it. Yep, we can post it on the website probably tomorrow. And
Okay.
maybe when we send the thank you out, we can provide the link to that.
Okay, that'll answer that question. And there will also be, this presentation will be translated into Spanish as well, and that will be posted as well, so that you
Yes.
have that presentation as well. And then also, I think there may be, I don't see anyone who was on the phone with a particular question. So I think
I think I
see,
saw
I
a
see
caller.
one.
Yeah.
I see a caller.
you do.
Yes, ending in 6-3.
Okay. That may be our last question of the evening, the caller ending in 6-3. I just want to make sure they have, we're talking about equity, make sure they have the same equitable access to at least tell us their question, because it will not be recorded in the chat. If that caller, if we can unmute, if the chat moderator could unmute the caller in 6-3, because once they voice it, it will also become part of the discussion. Otherwise, we will not know what their question is.
Hello?
Yes. Do you have a question?
Hi. Not a question, but well, actually, it is sort of like a question. What I was thinking about is, have we covered infrastructure to the point where cyclists can come from one part of Prince George's County into DC kind of seamlessly? And the thing I'm thinking about mainly is the WBNA trail. Initially, that was part of a rail line that used to go from Union Station all the way to Annapolis. And I'm wondering if we can get trails like that where it's uninterrupted, cycling, then we could actually take cars off the road. So I just wanted to kind of register that. I don't know how it fits. I didn't hear a question where it would fit, but it's things like that. And also, there are a lot of cyclists who ride on the 5 or on the 4 into DC, into Pennsylvania Avenue, and so forth. And that right of way isn't, it's not safe. It's not, the debris is on the side of the road that impedes cyclists. But if we could get dedicated space police for that, we could take cars off the road for that as well, because there's a lot of, from a race perspective, COVID had definitely increased the number of Black cyclists. I've seen, proliferation of clubs, and those folks are also thinking about, taking their bikes to work, now. And so I wanted to kind of put that in there. I didn't know where to fit it in, so I figured I fit it in there.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing that information. That has been recorded, as this meeting is being recorded, and we appreciate that. So I think that was our last question / comment. I want to reiterate what everyone has said today, that we sincerely thank you for attending. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your discussion and for sharing your experiences with us tonight. I also want to thank our project team members and thank all of our facilitators as well for your time. And again, please, the website is in the chat. The survey is in the chat. the project manager's emails in the chat. Please continue to stay involved. And so you can continue to hear about this PBBS study. This concludes the meeting.